In ancient times, the Sheikah were at the forefront of Hyrule's contemporary culture and leaders in technology. They used their knowledge in service of the hero, creating training grounds and mechanical soldiers to aid him in defeating Calamity Ganon. The shrines and guardians that they created were so well constructed that many are still in perfect working condition today. Well, until now. Tears of the Kingdom without a doubt changed a lot of things for Breath of the Wild. But there is something that seems to be evident throughout the land of Tears of the Kingdom. Where did all the Sheikah technology go? For one obvious instance, we are stepping forward after the calamity from Breath of the Wild. However, the Sheikah towers, the Sheikah shrines, and slate seem to be changed or neither there. So what and where did the Sheikah technology go? Well, here's some theories and discoveries found in the recent Zelda game. Of course, there are major spoilers from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. One would assume that time has passed since the calamity, and that merits a lot of truth. Tears of the Kingdom seems to have likely taken place roughly 4 to 5 years after Breath of the Wild. And at the ending of Breath of the Wild, Zelda states that Divine Vah Ruta has stopped working. What was assumed before Tears of the Kingdom was that the technology was lying dormant or even stopped after Calamity Ganon's true defeat. So perhaps there is an explanation that the Sheikah and the Hylians collected the remnant technology before the upheaval event within Tears of the Kingdom, and deconstructed it for better use in the future. And when you visit many parts of where these towers and shrines were, they seem to not only be missing, but vanished out of plain sight. The Shrine of Resurrection now exists as a home to the Yiga clan. The new towers are seemingly borrowing guardian legs, and the ancient furnaces are also missing in action. So where exactly did all of this ancient tech go? Well, according to Pura, she claims that following the events of the Great Calamity, the Hyrulean people worried that the Sheikah technology could slip into Ganon's hands again, which is why they were demolished and deconstructed after Breath of the Wild. Pura and the others moved and reused the technology within, and the Yiga clan took over the Resurrection Shrine because it was unlikely to be used and checked in on again. This makes the most sense logically because, as stated before, Zelda expresses that a divine beast stopped working, which explains a purpose and reasoning as to why they deconstructed the Sheikah tech, because it started to become unoperational or completely scrapped and destroyed to avoid Ganon's malice to infect it once again. Tears of the Kingdom introduced a lot of new powers within the world. One that was particularly important was the Sage of Time. Zelda, who becomes the Sage of Time, imports a millennium back into Hyrule's history and meets the first king of Hyrule and his wife, Sonia. We see Zelda and Sonia able to manipulate objects and the thread of circumstances using this time power. What if the reason why we don't see any Sheikah shrines and technology is because it never existed? Now yes, this is far-fetched and gets into major loopholes within the story of Breath of the Wild, but let's look at some drawn out evidence. For one, the characters don't ever seem to mention this certain technology involving the Sheikah and the divine beasts. While yes, the former champions from Breath of the Wild do seem to exist previously because we can still see the dedicated idol made of Mipha and other champions, it does go without a doubt in my mind and others that time was perhaps manipulated so that the Zonai were now the forerunners of this technology to test the hero instead of the Sheikah. The second reasoning to this theory requires us to look at smaller details of some characters. When we get introduced to Minoru, the Sage of the Spirit, later on she passes herself into the Pura Pad or the Sheikah Slate as requested by Zelda. When Minoru transforms out of the slate into her destined tear, she looks to be resembling something similar to a Po or unresolved spirit we see within the depths. It's very possible that time was manipulated to let Minoru command a part of the Sheikah technology for the past millennia during the calamity and utilized her spirits or her energy force of the tear to power this tech. After all, her stylized third eye has a tear below it, symbolizing the unforgettable Sheikah icon. It's safe to assume that the Sheikah, at the very least, are either descended from the Zonai or studied their teachings and technology, leading to the creation of the Guardians, the Divine Beasts, etc. And the masks from Tears of the Kingdom's sages represent the Divine Beasts. It just so happened that maybe long ago, the Sheikah themselves forgot exactly where they got this tech from and were inspired to make their technology similar to the Zonai. However, the other point of evidence is an actual time paradox. Technically, we can call both worlds alternate universes or realities and paradoxes from each other. While Zelda in one instance never met the Zonai in the past of Breath of the Wild's world and timeline, Tears of the Kingdom's timeline created an alternate reality that never had the Sheikah either building tech because the calamity never happened and the Zonai were never forgotten. This new reality might have had the Zonai's tech prevalent and preserved over the ages, while the Sheikah never took the step to build weapons against the calamity. And although this isn't the best explanation in theory, it does explain a little bit of maybe why the characters barely mention the Sheikah tech and their history. While many will agree that the game suffers from not just explaining stuff like events and every and any reference to the calamity, I think once the Zelda hype dies down, fans are going to start being frustrated or either disappointed that this game doesn't answer any questions we had about Breath of the Wild and even adds more unanswered questions and apparent plot holes into the mix. This is where we get to assume that Nintendo really did retcon the whole Sheikah advancement and technology as a whole. One would speculate that between the events of Breath of the Wild and the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom, Princess Zelda, Link, and the Sheikah actively worked to destroy all that was left of the ancient Sheikah tech. Again, this makes sense considering the technology was used against them in the past, and they couldn't risk a future Ganondorf taking control and devastating Hyrule and its people once again. But the shrines and towers specifically were never a threat in the first place. So it's just left to us thinking that Robbie and Pyrrha cannibalized all of the tech in Tears of the Kingdom and made their own towers with what non-threatening tech they could salvage. An upside-down pair of Guardian's legs trapped beneath a platform isn't really going to raise an entire village after all. I don't exactly know why Nintendo was implying for this to happen, or rather avoid spoilers from the previous game, but it's very noticeable that these characters barely mentioned, if at all, from the calamity, and Ganon, who sprouted and killed thousands of people in Hyrule, just seems to be dedicated to a small and almost insignificant grave dedicated to them from Zelda. Plus, there are some lore inconsistencies for travel gates and the remade Sheikah tech. In Breath of the Wild, the Sheikah needed to use ancient furnaces to turn on their power, but now that doesn't seem to exist, and it's barely explained by Robbie and Pyrrha as merely their own inventions, without any explanation as to how and where exactly they knew and how to do this without any furnaces. So yes, while many fans will consider Tears of the Kingdom creating a retcon or lore inconsistencies from Breath of the Wild's lore, it's not going to be debatable if this is truly a sequel. With so many theories and lore implications about the Sheikah tribe previously, it made Nintendo look as if they were totally disengaging with Breath of the Wild's actual past 10,000 years ago and focus more on the Zonai and the time theories itself within Tears of the Kingdom. But with that, we are going to wrap up. Where do you think the Sheikah technology actually went? Let me know in the comments down below, and thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.